Hi, everyone, and welcome. We're doing a deep dive today on something I know you're thinking about. Everybody is, right? Data privacy, but specifically how AI impacts that whole conversation.
It's a big one.
It really is. And to help us unpack it all, we are turning to Debbie Reynolds. She's also known as the Data Diva. How cool is that?
Love that.
Right. And her newsletter, The Data Privacy Advantage, which, by the way, if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend it. But we're not just going to define terms here, although we will get to a couple of important ones. We really want to dig into the why this matters to you, to your data, especially as AI just keeps evolving.
Yeah, absolutely. And AI is getting so much more sophisticated.
Exactly. Okay, so you ready for some aha moments?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Data provenance. Data lineage. These sound a little technical, a little jargony, but I promise, so important. So data provenance, think of it like the origin story, right? Like a birth certificate for your data. Where'd it come from? Who collected it? Why?
Yeah, the who, what, when, where, why.
Exactly. But it's data lineage where things get really interesting because it's one thing to know where it started, but it can take so many twists and turns.
It's like you know where the data was born, but then it gets really interesting when you see, what happened to it, where it's been.
Right. It's like checking its passport. It's a journey. Like every time it's copied, shared, changed, that's all data lineage. And Debbie Reynolds had a really fascinating point about this in her newsletter. She talked about how this is already playing out in lawsuits against AI.
Oh, yeah.
Especially around copyright. AI is getting sued. I need details.
Yeah, so you have these, AI systems that are being trained on these massive amounts of data.
Yeah.
Right? And a lot of times that data is just scraped from the internet.
Sure.
But that data includes things like copyrighted images, text, code,
Yeah.
all this stuff that was probably used without the creator's permission. And so now creators are pushing back, right?
Makes sense.
Because they're like, hold on a second. That AI-generated masterpiece, it was built on my work. And that's where data provenance it becomes key.
Yeah.
Because if you can't definitively prove where your data came from, you could be in some real legal hot water.
So it's not just about someone using my data. It's about what they do with it, what they might create. I never thought about it like that.
Yeah, and that's just, one example, right? Like, imagine you agree to share your location data with, like, a fitness app, right?
Seems harmless enough.
Totally. Seems totally harmless. But then that same data gets sold to, like, insurance companies.
Oh, no.
Right, who then use it to, like, adjust your premiums based on, your perceived fitness level.
Wait, really? That could happen.
It could. And that's why understanding data lineage is so important. It's not enough to just worry about where your data starts. You need to think about where it might end up and how it could be used along the way.
So is it fair to say data provenance is like knowing your data's parents, but data lineage is like meeting all its crazy friends?
That's a great way to put it. And just like with friends, some of those relationships can be beneficial and some, well, let's just say you might want to keep a closer eye on things.
So, okay, if it's not enough to just know my data's genealogy, its parents, where do we even go from here? How do we even begin to get a handle on all the places it could go, all those friends it can meet along the way?
I think it's really about sort of shifting our mindset. We're so used to thinking about data privacy in terms of like, where's the data stored? Who has access? It's like we're trying to keep it locked in a safe.
Right.
But with data lineage, it's more about how's that data being used? How's it being analyzed? How's it maybe even being combined with other information to create something totally new?
And that something new could be something we'd never expect, like you were saying with that insurance example. It's kind of scary, honestly. Like you realize how much you really don't know about what's happening behind the scenes.
And that's exactly why Debbie Reynolds, our Data Diva, she really stresses the need for what she calls data lineage management. Being proactive, understanding the entire journey the data takes, not just that starting point.
Okay, so what does that even look like in practice? Are we talking about like becoming data detectives, trying to track down every single use of our information?
It sounds a lot more complicated than it is, actually. Reynolds lays out 3 key steps in her newsletter, and they're actually pretty easy to grasp.
Okay, give me the data wisdom.
Okay, so the first step is all about understanding how data can change as it moves, how it's transformed. You can kind of think of it like a recipe, actually. So you start with your raw ingredients, right? That's your data in its original form. But then it gets, chopped, mixed, cooked. It's your data being processed, analyzed, combined with other data. And then the final dish. That's like the inside or the product that's generated from all of that.
Interesting. So it's not even just about what they do with it. It's every step they take to get there.
Exactly. And that takes us to step 2, which Reynolds calls mind the mission drift.
Yeah.
And this is huge. This is about really recognizing that data collected for one purpose, it can be totally repurposed down the line for something completely different.
Like the fitness tracker and the insurance premiums?
Exactly.
Not
Or
cool.
think about social media, right? We share what music we like or what movies, our hobbies. Seems harmless, right? But all that data, it can be used to create these really detailed profiles about our preferences. And then those profiles,
Hmm.
they're used for targeted advertising or sometimes even, to try to influence our decisions.
It's like our data's got a secret life and we didn't even get to pick the wig.
Right. And we don't even realize it's happening half the time. That's why that whole mission drift thing, we got to be so aware of that. We have to start asking, like, what was this data even collected for in the first place?
Right, right.
How is it being used now?
Yeah.
And most importantly, do I even feel okay about that?
Exactly, exactly. Okay, so we've got track the transformation, watch out for that mission drift. What was the third thing on Debbie Reynolds' list for managing all this?
The third one seems a little maybe counterintuitive, but it's data retirement.
Oh, interesting.
And it's just the idea that, not all data, it doesn't need to be around forever.
Right.
In fact, keeping data indefinitely
Right.
actually makes it riskier, because then it could be compromised or used in ways that, nobody even thought of.
So like hitting the delete button, but like for companies and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really where companies have got to step up. They need to have really clear policies about, like, how long are we keeping this data? How are we getting rid of it when it's time? And they need to actually tell people about it.
Transparency.
Yes.
So we're talking actually deleting it, not just like, anonymizing it or putting it in a vault somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, anonymizing is good, but it's not perfect
Right.
because, you know, technology keeps getting better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so does the tech that can undo all that anonymizing.
That's a little unsettling. Makes you realize, like, how hard it is to really be in control once it's out there.
It is,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean we have no power. It's like understanding all this, even just these terms, data provenance, data lineage, mission drift, data retirement, it's a starting point.
It's empowering, right?
Yeah. And then we can demand better from these companies.
I like it. Knowledge is power, right? Gosh, Debbie Reynolds, the Data Diva. She's amazing. This has been so interesting, so helpful.
She's great at taking all these really complicated topics and making them, like, make sense for everyday people.
Right. So basically, we got to know where data comes from, everywhere it goes, if it's even still relevant, and if we don't like what we see, we say something.
Yeah. And I think remembering that every time you decide to share your data, it's like you're making this investment bet,
That's a good way to look at it.
and it's up to you to make sure that that investment is, being managed responsibly.
I love that. Well, on that note, we've reached the end of our deep dive into data privacy, AI, and why your data's journey really matters. Big thanks to Debbie Reynolds for her incredible insights, and to you, our listener, for joining us on this journey. We hope you feel empowered to navigate the data landscape with more awareness and confidence. Until next time.